What's up, everyone? DJ Duce is back. 420 was quite interesting yesterday, if I do say so myself. We had a lot of things going on, a lot of things happening that people weren't paying attention to. Elon, he done shot his rocket in the air,
Prepare for stage
and it done went
separation.
in a circle
Now,
and
after
blew up,
stage separation,
which
the
I
first
found
stage
very
will flip
interesting.
and begin a boost back maneuver for landing in the
So
Gulf.
this rocket supposedly was this is a test run yesterday, 420, of this rocket going up in the air. And the rocket was supposed to flip in a circle, and then the engine was supposed to separate, and it didn't happen.
Continuing to fly, 2 minutes 40 seconds. Let's get ready for main engine cutoff.
And as you can see here, the engine was supposed to cut off of the rocket after it circled.
Beginning to flip for stage separation.
So literally, you could just see the rocket going in circles, like without the engine separating at all, which I found very interesting. It almost looks like to me a symbolic symbol for the Ouroboros, as the rocket just keeps going in circles without detaching from the main engine. So very symbolic. It almost seems to me like this was all planned out, and this is why the rocket was waiting to launch on 420. And as you can see, it just keeps going in circles, and
as of
the
right now,
engine's
we
not
are
separating.
awaiting stage separation.
And at the end here, if you notice,
Where
after
Starship
it
should
finally blows
separate
up,
from the super
they
heavy
all
booster.
start clapping as if they succeeded. And that got me, because at the end of the day, the rocket
right
didn't
now,
go
it
up.
looks
It
like we
didn't
saw the
accomplish what
start
you
of the
wanted. It
flip,
just kept
but
going in
obviously we're
circles.
seeing from the ground cameras the entire Starship stack continuing to rotate. We should have had separation by now. Obviously, this does not appear to be a nominal situation.
Yeah, it does appear to be spinning, but I do want to remind everyone that everything after clearing the tower was icing on the cake.
Icing on the cake. And as you can see, everyone's quite happy that it blew up. It's almost like they were suspecting. It almost looked like they were suspecting it to blow up to me. Like the mission wasn't to succeed, and the mission was just to have the rocket go in circles like the Ouroboros and blow up, almost as if it was a symbolic ritual in a way. And the people out there who don't know what the Ouroboros is, basically the snake biting itself in the tail. Very symbolic, very Masonic, very occult, ritualistic like. But this is what people do, and this is what people ignore. Like these kind of symbolic rituals that these people do, for whatever reason you can come up in your mind, it happens. And for you to sit there and deny that it doesn't happen, it's quite amazing. But moving on, let alone from the Elon Musk rocket that went off yesterday, we actually had another treat. We had Donnie on the Full Send podcast, which I find very ironic, since 420 DT in the alphabet, D's the fourth letter and T's the 20th letter of the alphabet. So it almost seemed ritualistic and very like to have Don on 420. But anyway, so they had Don on the Full Send podcast. I don't know much about these guys. I know that they interview a lot of people, including Elon Musk. They had a bunch of favorite celebrities on. But anyway, they had Don on. They were interviewing Don. Now, what's crazy about this is like 2 or 3 weeks prior to Don going on the Full Send podcast, Don Jr. was on the Full Send podcast, and they did an interview that took place at the Twin Towers. I guess it was like a bar, restaurant / place. Found it very interesting out of all the places for them to hold these meetings or do the podcast that they would pick Twin Towers for Don Jr. to appear in. And then literally in a few weeks have Don come on 420 when your initials match the significance of the alphabet, D being fourth letter, T being the 20th. Surely nothing ritualistic or symbolic going on there. Just live life and go on as normal. Surely nothing's happening. But so he's on the Full Send podcast, right? And what gets me is, before he was on the Full Send podcast, back in the years with all the political WWE games that people like to buy into, Snoop Dogg was shown shooting Don right on a music video, I believe, and that was very symbolic in its own way. So if there was bad blood between whatever political side that you're on, or just neutral at its best, and you had problems with someone, then why would Don be coming on the Full Send podcast sitting next to a whole case of Happy Dad? Apparently that's the podcast's drink brand, sponsored by none other than, you guessed it, Snoop Dogg's very own Death Row Records. So a few years ago, we hated Donnie, and we were going to shoot him in a music video, and now all of a sudden we are embracing Donnie again, and he seems to be acceptable. all at the same time while sitting next to a Happy Dad beer box with Death Row Records literally on the box. Like, how much more of a hint do the public need to get what's going on? Like, doesn't take a rocket scientist to put 1 + 1 = 2 together, but apparently for the human civilization it does. So you got all these ritualistic, symbolic things happening, and people were just going around ignoring it. Donnie's being shot a few years back by Snoop Dogg, and to all of a sudden magically be embraced by people that are sponsored by Snoop Dogg. Surely nothing suspicious happening there. And then you got the podcast, one of the podcast hosts with an actual Death Row Records T-shirt on as he's interviewing Donnie. As you can see on the left hand side, you got the Happy Dad Death Row Records beer or drink or whatever they're selling there on the side. Don't people find that suspicious? It blows my mind every day, but that's just how life works. Everyone just lives life, not seeking to understand why they live life, and then they get caught up in the matrix, and they can never figure out why and when and how these things are happening and why they're happening, and it's just very, very, very amusing to watch. Sad and amusing at the same time, I would say, but that's all I got for today. Hopefully, everyone's enjoying their time out there while the time is still going. Until next time, my friends.